Hello and welcome to the Maze Pwn School meeting. Glad everyone could make it. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone. The Maze Pwn School meeting. Glad everyone could make it. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone. The Maze Pwn School meeting. Hope everyone is enjoying the new platform we moved to. We moved to Twitch recently last month in place of Zoom. This makes it a lot easier for people to join, not have to install a client on their desktop, and then just streaming makes it available to more people out there. So thanks for joining. So I got a recommendation this week from Neural Phantom that runs Hack Fort Worth about these guys that they have a group, a study group, and they've been working on the OSCP, which I highly recommend study groups. Back when I went through the OSCP in 2012 to 2013, actually it wasn't until like the beginning of 2013 I joined a study group with 3 other people, and it was very helpful. And so these guys have some information to share on their process. They got a pretty good pass rate. I know several of our members are working on the OSCP, and several are aspiring to eventually go through the OSCP at some point. So hopefully what they share with us tonight will be helpful on your journey whenever you get ready to pursue the OSCP, or maybe you've tried it and fell short your first exam. So hopefully you all will enjoy this and get something out of it. So they come highly recommended from Neural Phantom. So they should be pretty interesting. So I'm gonna let you guys join on here. So thanks guys for joining. So
thanks so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. So as far as your members go, if you don't want to be on camera, that is totally fine. That is up to you. But yeah, we're looking forward to your talk. So if you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourself, about your group, and introduce yourselves.
Sure, absolutely. So originally me and another member that's here, but I'm not seeing him right now. We did the normal thing. We were on Reddit and we went to the OSCP subreddit, and we came across a posting to join an OSCP study group. And while that was okay, it was a large group, and we kind of got at odds with some of the members that were in there. Kraken, do you want to kind of expand on this?
Yeah, just making sure. Can you guys hear me okay? I got this giant mic in front of me.
Yeah,
sure.
Nice.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I put a post up on Reddit, the subreddit for OSCP, and I got a couple of hits, and some people joined. I got invited to another server, and so did Try here. So we ended up joining, and then we were talking about how we were going to proceed with our studies, what kind of schedule we were going to get on, or at least try to hold ourselves accountable to. And then we ended up leaving that server. It was really, really big. There were multiple channels, tons and tons of channels, and just a lot of noise. So we ended up going our own ways. I started a small Discord server. I invited him, and then one thing led to another, and we got a good group of people coming in. And we have some very active members who like to teach, and we kind of feed off of each other's strengths. And wherever we have weaknesses, we ask for help. And that's kind of where we are now. I can get into more detail as people want. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay. So the rest of you guys want to introduce yourselves? That would be good.
They're a little shy.
It's okay. Yeah, a lot of people in this industry are, so I'm kind of used to that. So
I'm not really shy. I just I'm guilty of talking and not realizing that I didn't unmute myself. So I'm pretty consistent with this. Here I'm Menace to Sobriety, but on the Discord channel, if anybody wants to join, you'll see me as Dances with Tacos. I joined, I guess, a little bit after the initial group was set up, and I brought in Aru 77 and Kitchen. I come from a web app pen testing background. I'm currently a web app pen tester with a lot of, well, with some AppSec experience. I know how to claim that I know what I'm talking about, but like in practice, well, you'll see. So yeah, that's all I really have to share.
Okay.
Look forward to connecting with everybody.
Yeah, and if you guys want to, feel free to share the URL to your Discord in the chat if you like.
Great. Well, I think, as more people are joining this discussion, I think kind of what we're going to start talking about is the benefit of being part of a group, and how it really aids in studying and preparation for the OSCP exam, but not really just the OSCP exam alone. I think, as members begin to pass their OSCP exam, you're going to see us taking things like going after the trifecta or going after, Rostamouse's CRTO. Because those are kind of natural progressions along following OSCP. But it's nice to be able to, use a group to hold yourself accountable, to ask for help, like what Sobriety said is, he's a web app guy. That's what he does professionally, and he just seems to be very good at doing that. So whenever we have web app questions, whenever we need to know something about Burp Suite, advanced functionality, we kind of go to him. But I think it's nice to have, a good dichotomy among the group of various, talents and skill sets.
Yeah, that's great, because one of the things too, when you're doing research and looking up these different tools and things, when you've got multiple people doing that, it sure can save a lot of time vetting out tools and stuff too. So that's great.
Yeah. So my background is it's mostly IT professionally. I started off doing basically like grunt work, taking inventory, moving printers, stuff that gets your hands dirty, literally. And then I moved into a sysadmin position within a year. Did a lot of work with virtualization and operating systems, patches, updates. And then from there, I moved to a very big private company, and I did some build engineering with Windows systems for a while. Then I got hired full time onto their security team, and that was post graduation. So I ended up going for a master's in information security, and then I did that for a little while. The company moved headquarters, so my team moved very far from home, and remote work was not an option. So I had to jump ship, something closer to home. Did that for a while, and now I am working as a security engineer, and that is my professional background. But I've always had an interest in offensive security, so that's why I started up the group, and I'm with these guys just trying to learn and improve our skill set every week. And something that we do that I consider different is that we will stream ourselves doing a box, and sometimes you just flounder. You just make a fool of yourself. You're trying to figure out how to get a reverse shell or escalate some privilege, and you have no idea what you're doing, but you got a good group of guys here who are willing to help. They're not going to flat out give you the answer, but they will see what you're doing and try to improve your methodology. So if they see that you're headed in the wrong direction and you're going really far off into a rabbit hole somewhere, they will say, you started to lean off, or you started to steer off. At this point, you should consider going back and looking at something else. And so you save yourself some time doing that, but they also let you flounder a bit so you can get a feel for what it's like to be in a rabbit hole, so you can know what not to do in the future. You kind of get that second nature, sixth sense instinct where you're just like, I have a feeling I'm going down the wrong path, because it's just like when I did these other 3 machines or whatever. And then you start to build that skill set, and it becomes second nature, and it's with the help of people in a small group. So I think we have some people here. We do have some folks who passed the exam very recently. We have someone who is scheduled to pass, I say scheduled to pass the exam because that's what we're hoping for. We have someone to take that at the end of, I believe, next week, if not early following week, which is the very end of May. We've been, again, we do the streams, we watch each other, we comment, we ask questions, we take notes, how to improve, we share resources and tools. But one of the key things about the group is that it's not so big where you lose that kind of camaraderie and home feel, where you have a group of people who are all somewhere along the line for studying for the OSCP. I feel like when you get into these really, like, I call them mega Discord groups or mega Discord channels and servers, there's just so much stuff there that it's constant noise. And if you don't take care of your notifications or something, it's just like ding, 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 ding all the time. You're just like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. So you end up muting the channel, and then you don't get anything out of it because you're not active and you don't find people who care, right? So, sometimes I'll reach out to some of the other members and be like, hey, last week or last night you were doing this on this machine. I noticed that you do things differently. Can you show me why? And then they'll go through their methodology, and then I'll say, okay, well, this is what I was doing. And they'll say, okay, well, that's the way that I used to do it, but I found this way is better. And then they'll explain why. So that's kind of the camaraderie that we have and the method that we go and establish with the members. So I think somebody's here. I'm going to stop rambling and let one of these other guys have a chance at the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a good time for us to get into the nitty gritty of what we've sort of figured out as maybe the optimal approach to OSCP, which everybody wants to know. If you're familiar with it, you're reading TJ Knoll's path, the path that he just updated it recently, I think last week or the week before. But we think there's a couple additions that we could add into it. And, Nick, if you're around, would you like to kind of give your spiel?
All right, sure. And just make sure I'm not like super low still, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yep. All right. So, one of the things that during I passed recently last month, about a month ago, and it was actually on my 4th attempt, mainly because my first piece of advice for anybody who's wanting to pass the exam is you're going to do the lab and exercise work for the 5 points. And because I would not have had to take it 4 times if I had done that before my first time, because I got a 65 on the first time. And if I had done that, I would have had a 70 and would have passed. And then I wouldn't have had to join the circus for the next 2 attempts before finally passing on the 4th one. There is a lot of pathways to get the 65 on that exam. And it's very possible that you can get there and you'll be stuck looking for that one more flag if you don't have that report. There are a lot of different machines in that exam, and a lot of different difficulty levels. There are people, I'm sure anybody who's looked into it would see, the people who make those like posts on Reddit saying, oh, this was like the easy exam. I 5 out of 5 did. I was done in 8 hours, type thing. And then you got the people who are like, I did all the machines in the lab. I've done all these machines on HDB, and I got on the exam and I got 0 machines other than the BOF. Right. And you would look at those two and you say, this doesn't make any sense. Right? Like, how could you have somebody that goes from smashing them all with like very little time and a person who's apparently done so much and it still doesn't? From my multiple times doing it, there are definitely different machines on those exams. And as I've told these guys when we've been talking about methodology and stuff like that, there are plenty of machines that they make and that they have designed in the PWP lab and also in their new OffSec Proving Grounds practice that are also designed by OffSec, that have all their their same style of design that will appropriately reward you for following a proper methodology. Right now, there are a couple of them that to this day, like, I have no idea what they want you to do with that machine, and like, I'm hoping that, because it seems to be that if they retire a box, they'll eventually put it on to Proving Grounds practice. So I'm waiting for that day for them to put one of those on there so I can finally see what you're supposed to do. Anyway, so one of the best things to do to start, what I did, and which is I think is probably a little overkill for some people, but I started my path going through. I read a couple books, just regular books. There was one of them that was done by a professor from South Dakota University. That's a very well known offensive security minded college that you can go get a degree from. He has a book that you can read. It's very simple. It's like beginner penetration testing or ethical hacking penetration testing, I think. That was a good book to read. And then I got on and I did eLearn Securities at the time. eLearn Security was their own thing, and they had Ecppt. That is a fantastic beginner course. If you're just beginning, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. It sounds neat, but let me try to figure out whether or not I would like to do this stuff. That will definitely tell you whether or not you like it, because it's a lot of hands-on labs, and also the exam is also hands-on. While it has questions that you have to answer, it's questions that you answer by actually going through like a small, like 4 or 5 machine simulated network, and you get to go break into the machines, and you have to go find those answers. If you want to know what the job is about, that's basically how that what penetration testing is about. And that if you find that fun, then that's probably going to be something you might want to look into going more on. After that, I did the eLearn Securities next one up, which was Ecppt. Ecppt is some people want to say it's kind of like on the level of OSCP, but it's not really, because they kind of test different aspects. One of them, like, so for example, in the Ecppt, you're going to need to know about being able to traverse through networks. On OSCP, you just have 5 machines that you have direct contact with. So you don't necessarily have to like try to do pivoting or anything like that, because they're just 5 separate machines. This isn't anything new. You'll see that on all of their facts and stuff like that when you look at OSCP exam and versus the other ones. But it definitely gives you a good understanding. Once I did those, I ended up joining HDB. I started working on a lot of the old machines. Just like I tell the guys when we talk about it, is that when doing the old machines, especially if they're the quote unquote easier ones, that's did like Blue and Legacy, Shocker, Poison, all of those. They're the older machines that were made, but back then when they were putting those in, a lot of those were built to expose you to a specific type of attack vector, which is good to know. Like, it's a good like foundational understanding of what's going on machines, and it gives you that beginner of like, okay, we're gonna kind of throw it at you. It's kind of obvious, like, hey, this machine's called Blue. Guess what? This is supposed to be asking you to find out, right?
Right.
So, and it's like, but now let's see if you can properly exploit the vulnerability. You can try to do it manually, or you can try doing it with your Metasploit, package. Either way, as you start moving down that machines, and I did about 20 to 30 of them, from the easiest ones down. I actually got my job to pay for my PWK. I got into PWK labs. I did about 30 of the machines in the PWK labs. I was focusing on the ones that didn't really have to do with needing dependencies on other machines, because you're not going to need that for the exam. I just wanted to find machines that were just solo machines, and I didn't pay attention to the Active Directory means, because those again aren't going to be on the exam. You're not going to see any Active Directory or any kind of dependencies. You can obviously, if you have, they came out with a new one for O365, or not the O365, PWK 365. That has a lot more time. If you have the money and the time to invest in doing the PWK 365, especially like if your company's going to pay for it, that is probably the best one, because you no longer have that time, the time crunch of you have 3 months to read through an 800-page PDF and do all the exercises, which usually takes, depending on how your life is, you've got a lot of other than, work related responsibilities. You may only have a couple hours a night. That could end up taking you, a month or more to get through all those exercises. Which means then you have like 2 or less months to try to tackle 60 machines or so that they have in the labs, if you want to try to go after all of them. that's kind of pressure. That's a lot more pressure than you might want. And you may want to like rush and try to get people to just give you hints or give you answers, just so that way you can try to move on to machines. But if you got the PWK 365, you're going to have an entire year plus you get 2 exam attempts. That will basically take a big weight off your shoulders of, I've got plenty of time to be able to go through here. You've got like, I think we mapped it out at one point, it was like 4 or 5 days after doing the lab report or the exercise and stuff like that. You'll have like 4 to 5 days for each machine if you were to do just to even them out. So that's plenty of time to work on those machines. But anyway, so I did those. I did my first attempt. I got a 65 and was very upset because I took it because I was thinking I had 1 month left on my PWK labs, and I thought, well, I'll take the first exam. I didn't expect I'd pass, but I just wanted to see what I was going to be good at. And I ended up getting the 65, and I hadn't done the lab report yet. And that really upset me. So basically I spent my last month making the lab report. I should have first. That would have been the best idea. I ended up taking it 2 more times, and unfortunately was not able to pass it either of those times. But then on my last one here, it worked. I believe that after finding Kraken, it's actually just kind of by a happenstance. We were both in, I think, like one of the bigger groups on Discord, and we were both asking about the same machine, and that we were both looking at. And I had a question about it, and he had a question about it, so I ended up talking with him about it, and we just hit it off, and he invited me into the group that he's got going. So that's basically about where I got. Once I got into that group, I started sharing what my methodology is on how to identify machines. As I tell them, the exam is really all about being able to identify vulnerabilities and find the exploit that's assigned to that vulnerability. They're not difficult. They're never going to be something complex, because this is intended to be, as people like to joke about, this is a quote unquote entry level exam. It's not an entry level exam in the sense of easy security. It's entry level as far as we're not going to ask you to find 0 days or find do like code review of some 2,000 lines of code to find the one issue that you can do it right. They're not doing that to you. They're going to give you machines that are intentionally vulnerable, and you can, with some proper enumeration and some proper research, you can find out what is supposed to be the way in, and then you just got to find out how to work on it.
Yeah, I think we have Kitchen here who's going to talk about THM. Kitchen, are you on?
Yeah, hey guys.
Hey, yeah, go ahead. Give us a little detail about what you used. Kitchen's actually the guy who's going to take the exam very soon, so he's going to talk about his little journey here and some resources that he found useful.
Yes, the struggle is real. Hopefully, I pass next weekend. I mistakenly scheduled my exam for Memorial Day. So in my just eagerness to try and pass this thing, I file for a day off on the following Monday, and they're like, you have off on that day, right? It's after Memorial Day. I was like, great, sounds good. So, my kind of throwing myself into this thing, a little bit about me. I'm a systems administrator for an MSP, and I support 100 different clients, various infrastructures, and just crazy nonsense. I really wanted to pull myself out of that field, maybe continue to service small businesses in some regard, as far as security services and things like that. But I really wanted to get out of this role that I'm in, either become a security engineer, penetration tester, or something, just kind of grow my career a bit. And so I, heard about the OSCP, and I started getting into it. I went into it pretty blind. I hadn't done anything like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, Proving Grounds. Proving Grounds didn't even exist at that point. And so I kicked it off with the PWK Labs. You basically get the most expensive PDF and VPN connection of your life, and you're just completely overwhelmed. Like the only way you're not overwhelmed or flabbergasted by the stack of material that you get is if you already know about things like SSH tunneling and how to find exploits, what Nmap is. Like I barely used Linux, and I just kind of threw myself into this thing. Since then, I've learned a lot. It's probably been almost a year, maybe 9 months since I started. And I took a big pause after my first attempt because I had school and work and stuff. But now I've kind of, with the help of this group, gotten back into it pretty heavily. But my advice to anybody that's thinking about taking the OSCP is, do the 365. I think it's pretty reasonably priced compared to what the 90 days was and one exam attempt. I think it's a better deal. Don't quote me on that. But, try some of the other services out there. Try Hack Me. A lot of people, I notice, kind of steer people away from Try Hack Me, but I feel like if you're pretty new to the field and you don't know a whole lot about penetration testing or how exploitation works, they have a lot of really great modules in there. Even if you just want to buy 30 days, like if you look at your schedule and you're like, yeah, I got some time to kind of get cracking on this. No pun intended. It's just a good way to get started. I didn't realize that until after PWK. I kind of, tried out Try Hack Me, and they've got amazing buffer overflow tutorials. They've got an excellent penetration testing path that you can kind of get on. And it really gives you like kind of a great overview of, Windows, Linux exploitation and kind of understanding the process. And it's a little hand-holdy, which is nice because, again, you really don't know what you're doing at that point. And the whole try harder mentality is good. My 2 cents on that is that you should know how to find the answer yourself and have excellent ability to enumerate and research things that you see and find. But you should also be able to ask for help. And I think that a lot of the Try Hack Me mantra, it's just this machoism, that people don't learn from. You running against a wall for days, and really you ask somebody for help and they're like, oh, it's this. You just overlooked this one thing. But you wouldn't have ever even thought of it because it's just out of your scope of knowledge. You wouldn't know if you didn't know, type of thing. Mm-hmm. And sort of getting past that wall has helped me out a lot, being able to ask the right questions and learn how to research things properly. I'm pretty notorious for finding exploits on boxes, then running away with them in like kind of a unique direction, like JWT, like Java Web Tokens. I look into like these crazy things and find these ridiculous articles, and they're way over the top type of exploits that aren't necessary. And people are nice. They're like, this is pretty cool. I should read this, but you're way overthinking this problem. You should really dial it back and look at what you have and work with that. But so my second attempt, the way that I've been preparing through the group, I've been doing a ton of Hack the Box and a ton of Proving Grounds, watching a lot of IPsec videos, really just kind of hammering on my documentation, my notes, not trying to learn too many new tools in a short amount of time, working with what I know. And I guess the only other major thing that I would point out to people that are kind of going into this fresh is that while Hack the Box is a great place to learn, the machines that are there, and I think Nico highlighted this, like the machines that are there are kind of like puzzling. They're a little bit of like a riddle. They're not your traditional, because everything's kind of burnt out, right? Like you can only do eternal blue exploits or the same PHP, like you only do the same exploits so many times. So they kind of think of ways to trick you and make it a little more interesting. The boxes are a lot of fun. I look at them more of a game than I do an actual penetration test. You will learn a lot from them, but don't be surprised if you find some privests that are just like, why on earth is this happening? It's a lot of fun, but those machines that are there are different than what you'll experience in the PWK labs or even proving grounds. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'd like to add there's some other resources out there that I utilize that are great for filling gaps or blind spots. Number one, I have to mention Port Swigger Academy. It's free. It's learning advanced Burp Suite techniques that, Burp Suite's a wonderful tool. It's got a ton of functionality in it. And if you don't just kind of sit down and try to learn it, you're never going to learn like all the advantages that you can get from knowing it, a tool like that better. In addition, for things like understanding privilege escalation better, we've a number of people have joined Tiberius and TCM's privilege escalation courses that they have on what is it, Coursera or Udemy.
Udemy.
And even to tie back to try hack me, Tiberius's class actually, he maybe this isn't going to help him, but the class that he teaches uses his room, the Windows privilege escalation room and the Linux privilege escalation room from Try Hack Me. Now in the course that he gives that you pay for, it's going to cover more depth, but those are great resources. And for $10 to help another local hacker that's just trying to spread some knowledge to people, it's well worth it.
Cool. Actually, I had Tiberius on an episode of my new podcast, the Hacker Factory, recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Just super guy.
Yep.
Very cool.
I think one thing that we sort of breezed over it, but it's very important to us, and it's one thing you kind of learn.
Got a really good.
Yeah, he does. Our notes, we focus a lot of time on notes. Even with what app we chose, I believe, Kitchen. So having notes is just quintessential. Like, that's going to set you up for success. There's just no way you can just remember everything. And Kitchen had these beautiful notes from Microsoft OneNote, but we ran into a problem that you couldn't copy and paste out of it, and that's a funky Microsoft problem. But there's a lot of good options that are out there now. Namely, and I guess what our group has sort of decided on after trying a number of different things, we've kind of decided that like Joplin and Obsidian are kind of the best options out there for being able to take notes specifically kind of for what we do, which is going to involve a lot of copy and pasting of code and terminal input output. We've just found that those seem to work best. You can get them to where you can have it on your local and you can have it in your VM, which is important. So when you're not transferring things between your local and VM on copy and paste, that can sort of get messy. Personally, I use Obsidian, but I know a number of people in our group are using Joplin, and you have to say this when it comes to Joplin and Obsidian, that the TJ Knoll has in his GitHub, he's got what is it called? The pentester's report.
Report template.
Yeah, report template. You've got to have it. You got to use it. It's the template that you use for when you write your reports for the OSCP, and he's got it all laid out. And all you got to do is just fill in the bits and bobs in order to complete the report for the OSCP and for the practice and lab exercises as well.
I would also say that if you're going to use any note-taking tool, you want one that has an ability to search. As you do machines and you do more stuff, you're going to start getting those feelings of, I feel like I've seen this before, or I think I know what I should put here, and I probably wrote something up about that before, so let me go ahead and search my tool, my notes, and I'm sure I've got it written down somewhere. And that will be much more helpful for you.
Searching and tagging has been pretty helpful. Searching and tagging all the way.
Well, I think, when you talk about a job that's so heavily dependent on the report, I mean, as pen testers, we just want to get in there and break things, right? But what your clients are going to hire you for ultimately is the report that you write, and it needs to be professional. It needs to be in terms that, middle management, senior management, and C-suite can understand, and learning how to write and using your own notes to start practicing that sort of writing style and that voice is an important part, and it's a valuable skill to learn along the way. So it's something that we focus on.
Yeah, so I'm actually seeing somebody in the chat saying that they love Obsidian, but they had a little issue with the escape character. I've had the same issue in Discord.
Yeah.
So I think I spent maybe like 10 minutes with Nico trying to figure out why a reverse shell was not coming back. And I'm telling him, like, dude, I am copying and pasting exactly what you're putting in chat. He's like, really? It works for me. So I think like after 10 minutes, we look and Discord will take your backslash as escape character, and it won't add it. So you have to put 2 in the chat. I mean, we tried everything. We put in single quotes, double quotes. We added, characters before and after, and it kept escaping that one character. So we finally figured it out. It was just like one simple thing. And I think that entire sentiment is like the very core of studying for the OSCP, because you might be doing everything right, but it's that one character that is going to set you like a mile away from success, but you're just so close. And I've run into it many times. And again, to highlight, the note-taking is so important, because you will reuse the same PHP reverse shell over and over and over, and then one box is just not going to work, and you're not sure why. And so that's when your search skills come into play. Your Google foo. You got to go out there and be like, okay, why isn't this working? This shell always works. And then it's like, oh, lo and behold, there's a an MK or M5 reverse shell. Try this one, and then you just add to your arsenal. So good note taking is going to set you up for success. It's super important, and it's critical for that time crunch, right? Because you don't want to be Googling PHP reverse shell on your exam. Like, you should have that set in stone. You should have, however you have it set up. I recommend having a single note or a single folder dedicated to just like web shells or just shells, and then you separate it: reverse shells, web shells, Linux reverse shells, Windows, Netcat, and you separate them so that it's easy to find. And that's when that search functionality comes into play, because again, you don't want to be Googling how to reverse shell on Linux or something, right? Because know yourself, right? In times of stress, you lose a little bit of that critical thinking. You're just like, oh wait, and you panic. So you want something that's almost panic proof, where you're going to search, and you search for whatever it is you're looking for in your notes, and you should be able to find it. If you're trying to set up an HTTP server with Python, a simple Python, you could search for it on the internet, or you can have it in your notes right then and there. So you just look for the folder, copy, paste the code. If you don't have it memorized, that's okay, but you should have it in your notes.
I know that got me a couple of times. Once during the test, I was relying on Pen Test Monkey's reverse shell cheat sheet a lot, just because I knew it would always be there. And then when I was taking the test, his site was down.
Oh, that's
I mean,
brutal.
I had it saved. I found it somewhere else, but like,
That's one of the reasons I started using Evernote, because back when I was going through the OSCP, just for general notes that I would keep for different pen testing tools, because back then it was like a really good opcode site that went away and you could no longer find it. I finally found something else, but the web clipping feature, and I think you can even use that like in Joplin, so you can like clip the whole page so you guide it if something happens and that site goes away.
I think, just to add to that story, Nick took the test just a couple of weeks ago, and it was just days after the whole issue with using linps on the exam came out, that there's an auto exploit built into linps that if it hits it, it'll auto exploit it. And I guess the problem got solved quickly, but for a couple of days leading up to the exam, you got to figure out, well, am I going to be able to run the exploit script or not?
Yeah, I saw that recently about that. So thinking along the lines of that, do you guys do anything, any scripts or anything that you come up with that you use during during the OSCP to help kind of streamline your process, or you're just sticking basically with your notes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got a process.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I mean, there's a couple of initial enumeration scripts you can run. There's auto recon, there's nmap automator, there's recon bot. All of those are safe last time I checked. To run against something's going to auto exploit for you. You can just run. It's going to do general, discovery for you. It's good to know what's happening under the hood. Like you should be able to run these commands on your own, but obviously, unless you want to build your own script from scratch, you could take one of these and modify them to be your liking. If you want to pipe in a different word list, if you want to do different commands based on ports that are found. But I find out of the box, nmap automator and auto recon work fantastic. And then once you're actually onto a machine and you want to kind of push ahead, just linpeas, winpeas all the way. There's other stuff out there for specific like kernel exploitation discovery, but linpeas and winpeas will at least put you on the right track to see, especially in this, specifically for OSCP, like it'll put you on the right track for the types of exploits you're looking for.
Cool.
Yeah, and then after those initial enumeration scripts, if you do, which hopefully you will, and I'm sure you will, get a foothold on the machine, you get that initial shell. There are then some scripts that you can run for further enumeration, right? Because you did the initial enumeration, you got a foothold. Now you have to enumerate again. That's part of the process, and then you get your HTTP server or however to get those scripts on, and we use things like linpeas, winpeas, suit enum. There's some stuff, if it's a Windows box, you can use exploit suggester on your own machine if you copy and paste system info. There's some other ones out there that are not as common, and it depends. But our group swears by suit enum, and I give credit to Nico for that because I was just like, suit enum, what's that? Now I use it all the time. It's one of the first things I run because it's one of those quick wins. But first thing you should do if you get a foothold is run sudo-l or sudo tech l. You'll get some quick wins if you remember to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be relying on your script to do it for you, but it could take a long time, and you could save easily 30 minutes by doing a sudo tech l. And then other scripts too, right? It depends on what the machine has on it, but typically that's what you're going to run: suit enum, linpeas, or winpeas, depending if it's Linux or Windows. And if I'm not mistaken, there was something else. Sherlock
Watson.
Is the Watson. Yeah, Watson's the successor, or is it the predecessor to Sherlock? But yeah, if you're on a Windows box, you can run something like that. There's Power Up for PowerShell scripts on Windows machines, so it depends. But then you look at the output from that, and it can be very overwhelming if you're not used to it. But that's why you have to do so many practice machines, so you can get those repetitions in, and then you know what to look for. And you get that gut feeling, that instinct where you're scrolling through, and you can say, okay, this is popping out at me, this is not. But don't be discouraged if you scroll through the whole thing and you're just like, yeah, I don't really see anything. Go back, take your time, slow down, and you can find people in the group who will say, it's there, I saw it, you passed it up, so go back and look again. And then they'll be like, that looks interesting, you should probably check that out. And then it turns out that as soon as you Google it, especially if you're doing Hack the Box, you get like a ton of results. And then you get write-ups, and you're just like, okay, so I'm on the right path because you get all these write-ups. But don't click on the write-ups. Go to the GitHub page, go to ExploitDB, and try to do it on your own first.
Cool. Very good discussion here, guys. So we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if anyone has any questions out there you'd like to ask the group, just post them up there and chat. So anyone have any questions?
I've got a question. Kitchen, what are you doing to prepare for the exam next week? Last minute preparations.
I mean, so I just finished up finals, and now I think this, like last week, I was just kind of like decompressing from that, and I was having trouble focusing, and so I was like, okay, let me just take a break. So then this week, I started getting back into it and kind of feeling my groove. And I've been going back and doing older machines and just like kind of referencing notes, not trying to drive myself crazy with anything, trying to see if there's any areas that I'm like really struggling in. I'll probably do like some SQL injection stuff to find a box where I know that exists and try to like go through it and make sure I understand everything again. It really just, building confidence, I think, more than anything. You can't have luck without preparation. So I'm just being prepared and hoping I get like a good roll on these boxes and I don't get anything too crazy. And then if I pass, I think I will have passed in fewer attempts than anyone else. So
Cool.
a little bit of bragging rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few people that's passed it first time. It's pretty amazing. There's a guy that here local in the Dallas area, he's helps run the Texas Hack the Box group. And he did Hack the Box for like a year solid and then did like 60 days in the PWK labs and then passed the exam on the first shot.
Wow. I think Nicodemus will say this too. There's a certain element of luck in what boxes you're given by OFSAC.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the boxes aren't becoming public, so you never really, I think Nick has said this multiple times too. Like you get a box and you just can't get anything on it, but you want to see what, like after the test, if you've already failed it or passed it, you want to say, well, what was I doing wrong? Because this is a good learning experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally wish that you could have like a way. It's like, hey guys, okay, so now that I passed, can you tell me what was up with that one box? Just tell me, like, send me just a basic, like, what was the way in, something like that. It would be great, but they're not gonna do that. I mean, it's fine. It's for their own privacy.
It's probably a low key troll box. It's just like there was no way in.
Yeah, it's just so I saw somebody asked about doing HDB Team. So we don't have like an official, as far as I'm aware, we don't have an official HDB Team. However, we do go through Hack the Box on the Discord, like at night. We'll basically say like, hey, do you guys want to go through a box? We'll just pick one. We'll go through it. We'll talk through it. If one of us have already done it, then we'll just kind of watch somebody else, that try to actually go through it instead. But if we're doing like a walkthrough, then we can just have somebody who's done it before, try to walk through the methodology and show. And what we try to do a lot of times when we do these things is stay consistent with what the methodology is, because that's what we're teaching, right? So like not like jump to the answer. You want to run through all the different steps that you always want to check. And even though you may have already found the answer or something like that, but still do your checks, because that's what you want to do in case that wasn't the way forward, right? You want to make sure you're having that process, because that's what's going to get you when you go to the exam. That's where you're going to get caught, is because you're going to think that it's one thing and you're going to jump into that. You're going to be on there for hours and you're going to be stuck on it, and it's probably not actually the way in. And if you had just waited, you probably could have looked at anything else, and that probably was the right way in. So that's kind of what we do with the Hack the Box machines. Every once in a while, when we're on like Saturday nights, I know that Saturday is usually like the release day. If we're on, it's like one of like the easy box or something like that they put up, we'll sometimes hop in there and try to do the new box. But we're not doing like an official team.
So do you mind sharing your Discord?
Sure, that's cracking.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I don't see an option to post on here. I can send it through private chat, and then you guys
Sure.
can.
Yeah. I see Neural Phantoms on here. I didn't notice you come in, so thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It was Neural Phantom's recommendation for these guys, so you can thank him.
Thanks, Daryl. See another question. I'm a blue tamer and wanted to know if you all would recommend theory first, then do hands-on stuff, or go straight into hands-on. My opinion, this is an active practice. I think you can't go wrong with putting fingers on the keyboard and jumping right in head first. There's plenty of time to study theory. And it will come, like as you progress through working boxes, you're going to learn. You're going to learn the theory, especially once you kind of go back and write your kill chain. You take your notes, and you should be taking your notes while you're going through the box. But that's where you kind of put that theory all together, and it starts making sense. So totally, I would say jump right in. There's free stuff on Hack the Box. There's free stuff on Try Hack Me. And to that end, somebody else was asking what's the best place to start. In my opinion, the complete beginner path on Try Hack Me is the best place to start. It just really does a great job of going from zero to getting you cruising. After you do the complete beginner path, then you do the offensive pen tester path, and that'll get you very much up to speed you could do easy hack the box boxes. And I think that's one of the trusted paths that we've talked about in our group. And I know myself that I've done both the complete beginner and the offensive security path. And, that's kind of, you kind of have to look at it a little bit like it's a weed out course. Like if you can get through both of those and you still don't hate hacking, you're going to do well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To add just a little bit to that. So when you go, so I have, as I mentioned in the very beginning, I have a cybersecurity background. I have formal education, I have certifications and all that stuff. None of that really helped me coming into the offensive side. I know I had a kind of a knack for it and a desire to learn more during grad school, but all that background was just like not super useful coming into the offensive side. So I did the complete beginner path on Try Hack Me from start to finish. I did the offensive path, and then I went to Hack the Box. And then the machines on Hack the Box start off very easy if you order them from easiest to hardest, right? Which is something that our group did, and then we had a curated list from that, because the list is the TJ No list, just to be clear. And the beginning boxes are very good to put your skills that you learned from Try Hack Me path, both beginner and offensive security path. But then there's a jump in difficulty, and sometimes that you'll find that the Try Hack Me path touched on that topic but didn't dive too deep. And this is where you gotta let go of that hand-holding approach, right? Because now you need to realize that you've gotten up to a certain point that you weren't at a couple of months prior, but now you need to learn how to Google, you need to learn how to find the answers that you're looking for. And as Nico mentioned earlier, it's not going to be this obscure one article in the depths of the dark net that you need to find. If you're Googling properly, if you're searching the right terminology and the right versions of whatever it is you're trying to exploit, you will find the answer. And it's not super hard to find. Then you'll get better. But there is that jump in difficulty when you go from the really easy stuff to like kind of easy medium. And that's where a group like this really helps out, because you have people who have already done it and they can kind of help guide you and not give you the answer flat out.
Yeah, so much of it is just separating the wheat from the chaff, in Google, I think.
Yeah, and just getting to learn how to search for those terms, because especially from teaching my class at Dallas College, I had a student one day, he was constantly asking questions, and I was replying back, and a lot of stuff I just Googled for it, but I knew what to Google for, and he responded back, "Thanks for telling me not to use Google," because he didn't know the terminology. So you've got to learn to do it on your own, but at the same time, as you were saying, you have to do that research, and as you get experience doing those search terms, you get familiar with the topic. It's easier to do your research and find those things.
I saw somebody you mentioned about the what to take for beginner paths. THM nowadays, THM is probably your best bet for very beginner path. I would have said Ecppt because it's just a couple $100 and it's a fantastic course. But now with the way that since they got bought out by INE and now it's a different product to get it. It's the same stuff, but you got to pay a lot more and you get access to all sorts of stuff you don't necessarily need yet. But that because that's no longer as easily accessible, THM is probably your best and inexpensive way to start.
One comment about the EJPT. Actually, I work for INE, and they give the EJPT course away for free now. The course and labs are free, but you just have to pay for the certification. So they did make that free.
Oh, that's
okay.
great.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I believe that eLearn Security's actual like content and training content is fantastic. It's very very knowledgeable. They go very in depth and enough in depth that you can be able to understand what's going on. It's a lot better than just here, do this and win. They actually explain and they go through it so you have a better idea of what's going on. I would still say that would be the best one to take first, especially if it's free. Then
Yeah, they got a starter pass now. So if anyone's interested, if you look up get their starter pass, you can do it like they have a Python for data science. They have like a networking basics, a cloud basics or cloud essentials, or the pen tester student. So you can choose one of 4 different options that's free, and they give you access to the labs for those. So let's see.
It looks like we got some more questions coming in.
There's one. Someone said they know this is centered around OSCP prep. Took that once and missed a few points. Work paid for eLearn Security Ecppt. Worth spending the time on, and it would it be worth spending time on to help with the OSCP?
I would say that since I took the Ecppt. That is very good for a real life pen testing. Ecppt really actually has some good real life pen testing skills that it trains you on. They don't go too much into the, I guess I'm going to use the word trickery, that OffSec likes to try to do to make you try to really look for those vulnerabilities, to be able to dig in and really find out where it is you're supposed to go. They don't quite touch on that as much. They really just give you the basics and they give you a lot of good foundational understanding of what's going on. I had told the guys before that it's very similar to like saying, you kind of have like your classroom studies and then you go and have like your practical applications and, like role play scenarios type thing. It's Ecppt and stuff like it are very much like classroom studies. And then going to like doing like HDB and PWK and stuff like that. And the OSCP are more like the role play scenarios where you're going in, you're really trying to apply what you've learned to take down those boxes. Also, I think I saw someone mention something about how do you work on that methodology to improve your methodology. One, if you can get a hold of somebody who's got a little more experience, so they can kind of give you their idea of what they've gotten to, right? That makes things a little faster as far as getting you a framework of what to do. But then after that, it's going to be about repetition and trying to be consistent in repetition and doing machines. And when you do them, you're going to find out like, okay, I got here. Did I see the answer? Because a lot of times you're not, as we've said, I think we mentioned before, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. However, did your methodology actually find the answer? It's just like you just know that you found it, right? And that's if it did find it, then the only issue there was just that you just didn't know what you were looking for, right? But you were able to find it. That means you don't have to change it. Now, if you got through it and you're like, oh, I never even saw that, or that never came across my screen. Okay, well now how do we get that so that something like that would, right? And that's how you would kind of update your methodology to make sure that something like that, you'll have the opportunity for it to come by. And you can work on from your own experience, you can decide, what is it that seems to be more often it comes through, and what seems to be like okay, if nothing else happens, then I'll look at these things, right? Because they seem to be so off and so rare. I'm not going to waste my time until the end to look at those things.
So great stuff, guys. Anyone else have any questions? We've been at it for about an hour, so.
Yeah, I think what Nick is getting at is so much of it is you got to get comfortable looking at in-map reports, getting comfortable looking at, using things like GoBuster, knowing when to use Ferox Buster or recursive subdomain hunter, getting comfortable looking at outputs, because like he's saying, you'll miss it in WinPs and LinPs and the exploit suggesters. You just kind of you got to see it so much that your eyes start getting trained to hone in on certain vulnerabilities, or that it's telling you something, or it's trying to get you to look at something, and you got to just train yourself to notice those things.
Another goal would be that if you're not used to Linux, or if you're not used to just seeing a bunch of internals from Windows and stuff like that, you're not going to know what's normal and what's not. Like what should you always see? And once you start knowing, this should always be coming up, then you'll know, hey, that doesn't normally show up. Okay, well now I should start focusing in on that because I normally never see that pop off. That's probably interesting. And that's more about the repetitions of what you do, is because you're going to have seeing the same kind of reports coming up on your screen and knowing that all that's fine, that none of that doesn't matter. And all of a sudden you'll see one that'll pop up and you're like, okay, well, what is that? Because that doesn't ever show up.
Okay, so anyone have any questions? So if you don't, we'll let these guys go because we really appreciate their time, and thanks for doing this, and thanks again to Neural Phantom for recommending you guys.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for having us, Philip. It's a big honor for everyone. Everybody was super excited to come on your show tonight, honestly.
Yeah, it's cool to have you guys on. Yeah. So anytime.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you come anytime you have any talks you want to give, feel free to come back. So
great. Yeah,
great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining. That's going to wrap up this month's Pwn School meeting. So we'll see you all next month.